Being the anesthesia provider for organ harvesting cases is definitely one of the top 5 hardest surgeries to be a part of. So trigger warning for anyone that's been a part of, organ harvesting situations, organ transplant, and so forth. By no means am I trying to say that this is harder on me than it is for the family and their loved ones. Surgery team usually gets a little heads up when there's a patient that's to be pronounced brain dead and needs an organ harvest, and therefore obviously so does anesthesia. When I get called to go pick up a patient from the ICU because an organ harvest needs to be performed, there's definitely like a mental talk that I have to have with myself on the way down the hallway before I get there. There's no specific patient population that, I would say is harder than others, but definitely on young patients that have had tragic deaths that, their life is only just starting and we're harvesting their organs is unlike any other scenario that you get involved in. Especially, it's just because it's like you just know that their life has barely started and it's just sad. Those are moments in my career that definitely have changed who I am and created the person who I am today, because, as I've spoken about before, I've had patients, in the ICU just begging to feel and see the outside one last time. And, when that's your day, it changes you. There's not a day that when I open up the door and walk outside that I feel the air on my face that I'm not thinking of that patient that was crying to me. When you take someone back to the operating room for an organ harvest, you're probably wondering why anesthesia is even involved. And that's because even though the brain is pronounced dead, the body still needs to be perfused appropriately so that we keep the organs alive. It's one thing to get a really sick patient from the ICU and hope and give it your all that they make it through the surgery, but to take someone back for surgery where this is the end is different. Depending on the surgery, the scenario dictates how I enter the room, how I introduce myself. I get asked a lot on here, like, do you bring this energy to your patients? And it obviously just depends on the scenario. And this scenario specifically is something that is just so separate from everything else. I walk into the room and I see the loved ones on this family member just broken, and I'm to take their family member away. Such a catch-22 because someone else's life is being saved.